I would like for you all to please give a very, very warm welcome to Mr. John Bender.
Hello. Thank you. They say making a film is a collaborative effort. Everyone comes together, everyone's on the team, everyone has a common goal. They say making a film is a collaborative effort, but in fact, it rarely is. Breakfast Club was the third film that I made, and I thought all films were going to be like that. I thought we would have rehearsals. I thought the director would like the actors. And I thought that we would be partners, not hired help. I was wrong. The Breakfast Club was one of the rare, truly collaborative efforts that I've been a part of. And that was because of John Hughes. An example, we shot in Chicago and they built the library inside the gymnasium of the school. We went a few weeks early to rehearse, something unheard of, really. The notion that you would rehearse and it would improve your work. Go figure. John wanted us to rehearse, and since they were still working on the library, we couldn't rehearse in there. They found an empty room and put tape on the floor to the same dimensions of the room. And they had the 6 or 8 tables in there, just like in the library. And the first minute of the first day of the first rehearsal, John had us all sitting at the same table. And I said, I don't want to sit with them. And John said, what do you mean? And I said, I don't like them. Why would I sit at the same table with them? And John said, where would you like to sit? And I knew from the script that by the time I get in there, only Allie was yet to show up. So I say to John, where I want to sit is wherever Michael sits, which is Anthony Michael Hall, who played Brian. And John smiled and he went to Michael. He said, okay with you? Michael went, sure. A second after that, Allie said, I don't want to sit with them. And John said, where do you want to sit? And she grabbed her script and her pens and she went to the back to the far corner of all the tables. Then Emilio said, I'll sit with Molly. And we all went, yeah, of course you will. So in the first beat of the first rehearsal, the script that John wrote was starting to come to life right there. And that was only because John allowed it. For some reason, he wanted us to be a part of the process. He believed that we could add something to the project. Another example is maybe the first day we're in Chicago or the second day, Emilio and I are at John's home and we're talking about the genesis of the project, how it first came to be. And John says he wrote the first draft in a weekend. And in stereo, Emilio and I went, first draft, how many do you have? And John said, 4. And in stereo we said, can we see them? And John went, sure. This is an incredibly rare thing, to be granted the opportunity to look at earlier drafts of the script. Not the shooting draft, but the earlier ones that had been discarded for whatever reason. He brings out the 4 scripts. For the next 3 hours, Emilio and I look through all 4. He makes some notes. In the film, Emilio gives a speech about why he's at detention, about taping the guy's butt together. That was not in the shooting draft. That was in an earlier draft. He asked John, would it be okay if he did that one? because he felt this one might be stronger. And John said, sure, we can shoot them both if you want. I asked John if there were a number of exchanges between Molly and I that had a kind of sexual innuendo crackle to them. And they weren't in the shooting draft, but they were in an earlier draft. I asked him if we could maybe move those into the shooting draft. And he went, we'll talk to Molly. If she wants to do it, it's fine with me. It's incredibly rare. He wanted us to bring all the stuff that we had. The final story on that same note, there's a scene in the movie when I walk above the ceiling from my solitary detention to the group detention, and I fall through the ceiling. In the script, there's no dialogue. I don't say anything, I just quietly go through it. I asked John if maybe I could tell a joke, and right when I get to the punchline, I fall through. John said, and we'd already shot my line after I fall through, something like, I forgot my pencil. John said, how about we try and figure out a joke that has that as the punchline? So for 30 minutes, and that's a lot of time to spend when everyone's waiting to shoot. For 30 minutes, John, Emilio, Michael, and I tried to reverse engineer a joke to have that as the punchline. We were unsuccessful. So we did 2 takes of me silently going through and falling. And then John said, why don't you try a joke and see what happens. And I told the most profane, dirty, X-rated joke I could think of. Every swear word I knew I put in that joke, and then I fall through. John says, no, we can't use that. It changes the rating of the film. That's ridiculous. And I went, yeah, I know, that was just for me. But if you give me another chance, I think I can do one that will work. And John said, okay. I don't know why I was an idiot on the first take, but I was very lucky that John gave me the second chance. And luckier still that that's in the movie. If you have an idea, and it's not a good one, and the director says no, that's fine. If they say no in a way that makes you not want to come up with any more ideas, that's not good for the film. Everything that John Hughes did, in terms of dealing with me, and I think in dealing with the other actors, supported the text. It was rare. I was incredibly lucky to work with him. I now know, 30 years later, that it's possible to be a smart man, a good man, and a caring man, and do art. And I'd like to close with, thank John, absolutely. I'd like to close with something. A few years ago, unfortunately, we lost John in a health accident, a heart issue, which is rather ironic since his heart was so big. And they were going to do something, the Academy was going to honor him, and I was very grateful that they asked me to be involved. I would have done anything if they wanted to do new tightrope walking and be like, fine, good. And, but I hadn't really thought enough about the meaning of John's work, and what he meant to not just me, but to film in general. So I wrote a letter to the writers of the Academy Awards, just to let them know my feelings about John. Whether it mattered or not, who knows. But this is an excerpt from that letter that I'd like to read. I've long felt that part of the younger audience's strong affinity for the work of John Hughes is due to John's ability, both conscious and not, to view someone that is young without seeing that person as less. Before John began making films, the term kids movie was largely derogatory. Any film labeled as such would be considered movie light. And if a youth-oriented film happened to have substance, it was thought to be largely accidental. Because of the films of John Hughes, it is no longer possible to judge a film's depth or the value of its content using only the broad strokes of a birthday counter. Young people face difficult decisions far more often than most of us are willing to examine. And therein lies John Hughes' entranceway. He didn't need to smash down any walls because the opening was always there, but no one bothered to look, or for that matter, to remember. John Hughes' ear paid attention to voices so seldom heard that a collective roar of approval greeted the one man who respected himself enough to listen to the little voices all of us have had at some point in our lives. John Hughes cared. It was obvious and some kind of wonderful. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for inviting me. One thing which I would love. A friend of mine was very sick and now he's on the up and up, and tonight's his birthday.
From the crowd singing.
Do you mind singing happy birthday? His name is Jack. Is that cool? Because I don't sing, man. Johnny Nelson.